max pointer you were supposed to be giving a point, I aggressively overtalk you and somehow you get muted, or to where I'm aggressively overtalking you to the point where your point is unintelligible when you're supposed to be talking, that's a concession. You fine with that? On my end, that's a concession. How about that?
Yeah, that's fine. And also,
perfect.
And also, you just not getting muted separately. Not him just.
You want only me to be muted, and you don't think this makes you look like a trash tier 5 in front of your audience? Is this a good look for you?
What?
You seriously? Okay. How about this? How about we compromise? Okay. Like two intelligent young men. So how about I get muted if I interrupt aggressively, and then you get muted if we interrupt aggressively?
No.
Or how about this? Or even we do a talking stick. So there's no possibility of any of us interrupting. You fine with that, buddy?
Talking stick is fine.
Okay, perfect.
You guys
can mute me, Marlon.
Alright, Ice. Let me give Ice Bun. I'm not moderating this shit, by the way, guys. Let me give Ice.
Oh, okay. Is Ice actually moderating? Because I thought he said no.
Yeah.
He said his granny died.
No, yeah, bro. Unfortunately, I wish I could, bro. This is a very insightful debate.
You're just clip farming, bro. Get out. Listen. So who else wants to moderate?
That nigga told her to get out. Yo, what the fuck?
I mean, I was gonna say he's fine with you, Manu. If we do a talking stick and we hold to those concession rules.
Right.
Plus, it's not gonna be too long.
Want to moderate?
Yeah, I'll be happy to moderate.
We can also have Origami Master 48.
Yeah.
Origami Master 48. We'll still hold to the rules, but it's if you overtalk me, not aggressively overtalk. I don't know what you mean by that.
Sorry, my internet cut out. I said, yeah, he's a very competent fellow. Fine with him.
Because that's wrong. But yeah, if you talk over me, not aggressively.
I've already specified my conditions and rules. So if that's the case, then that means this also applies to you, to which you just overtalked me now. So is that also a concession?
No, we're not debating though, stupid.
Oh, okay, so when are we starting the debate? Because we already have a moderator. So can we
start?
Have a judge. Because actually we have started the debate, and I've already pressed you on your idea of determinism. And I've already asked you to elaborate on my definition.
We haven't even established positions, so how the fuck?
Well, you're clearly confused, but I'm glad you've demonstrated to the VC why over the past, 4 years, your tracking ability has actually decreased. I mean, the reality of the nature is we specified that I'm going to be taking the idea of determinism as if, more specifically, that the idea that God is omniscient would necessarily lead to the consequence of determinism, or, you know what I'm saying, you would just be, in this instance, agnostic, because you don't actually have a position on it.
Yeah, God being...
Is that not what you established earlier?
Well, yes, nigga.
So you agree we already did establish topics and you just backtracked?
But you never, bro, nigga, oh my God. At first, what you said didn't fucking make sense to me, so I put into question on what position you was advocating for, so we never actually established it. I said at first, when you said your position earlier, I'm saying that I thought it didn't make sense to what I said, so I was putting into question on whether or not if it fucking aligned with what I said.
Well, it definitely does go in line with what you said. I think that's why you're being a bit retarded. But regardless, I mean, now that we've already clarified, can we not waste any time? I'm fine with being muted immediately since you agreed to a talking stick. I just want that distinction thing.
No, you don't have to be muted. You're the person that's proving it, my nigga.
No, I've already asked you to elaborate on the distinction between causal determinism and your definition. Because earlier the main issue and contention you had was that, are you interrupting me while you're the one who asked and requested moderation? That's really weird. Is it okay if you can mute him, Origami Master 48, while I continue? Please?
Origami Master 48.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
So yeah, previously, the main... Oh yeah, sorry, my internet. But yeah, the main basis of contention that you had was that my definition of causal determinism, which I'll reiterate very, very quickly, that, every event or action is caused by you know what I mean? And that the conditions at one point in time, we could predict future events based on those. and you seemingly didn't have any issue with that, or at least the main issue you had was that it was differently, quoted from you. You say that your idea of determinism does not hold to these commitments, and that I was actually misinterpreting you. So, could you just elaborate on that? Thank you.
Yeah, why are you trying to look cool? Your mic kept cutting out, by the way. But from what I heard, at least it don't seem like it's a problem. I don't know what you said in the middle though.
Yeah, okay, so you're fine with that definition.
Yeah. But yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'll just be presenting like an argument for why God being omniscient, leads to determinism. I mean, first off, obviously by omniscience, we're going to be referring to the idea that God knows everything. So premise one, you know what I mean? God is omniscient. And obviously this means that God knows everything, past, present, and future. Nothing is hidden from God's knowledge. Premise two, knowledge of the future entails that the future is fixed. Because if God knows every event, at least every future event with perfect certainty, then those events must already be determined. For instance, if God knows what a person will choose to do in the future, that choice must already be settled. Otherwise, it would contradict with the idea of God's omniscience, since God cannot be wrong about the future. Premise three, if the future is fixed, then free will does not necessarily exist or exist in any sense, at least in the sense of what we're talking about, because if every event is already known and settled, then there is no alternative possibility for these events to unfold. The future is inevitable because it's already been known, leaving no room for different choices or actions to occur. So, conclusion, therefore, God's omniscience leads to determinism, because since God knows every future event, the future is fixed. Thus, determinism follows, and everything happens that is predetermined by God. Thank you.
Yeah, one, I don't see how God knowing the future, meaning that the future exists. Him knowing the future is just him simply knowing what happened in the future. But what happened can still be actualized by our choice. So I don't see why free will is distinguished in P3.
Sure. Well, I mean, generally, at least the argument we're going to take for that, if knowledge of the future, entails that the future is fixed, I mean, the premise is generally just grounded in the concept of knowledge. I mean, to know something in the present tense means that it is true, because there must be a correspondence between the object of knowledge and reality. If God knows that future events with certainty will occur, then these events must already be true in the sense that they are determined. Obviously, the truth maker, at least in this idea, at least in an epistemological sense, states that, for a proposition to be true, it must correspond to a fact. So if God knows that someone will perform an action in the future, it suggests that this action already is, a fixed event. Otherwise, God's knowledge would be mistaken. So therefore, it would lead to a terrible contradiction if this were to be the case. Otherwise, it would have to have a necessary consequence of it being determined. For example, suppose that a person will pick up a red ball at 3 p.m. tomorrow. This knowledge implies that at 3 p.m. tomorrow, the person will in fact pick up the ball. If the future weren't fixed, your knowledge could be false and fallible. And the fallibility of such knowledge would obviously lead to the consequence of you not knowing everything. But since God's knowledge in this instance would not be fallible, there cannot be a consequence of him not knowing. The future must be fixed in this sense, or else it would just contradict with the idea of omniscience. Also, you said you had an issue with premise 3. I mean, my justification for premise 3, if the future is fixed, free will doesn't exist. Obviously, the premise hinges on the assumption that free will, requires the ability to choose, between different possible futures and actions. If the future is fixed and already known, it implies that only one future is possible, and all events must unfold in that predetermined way. Obviously, there are like alternative views, and you could give, a sense of alternative view if you'd like, but I feel like for obvious reasons this would be an issue. You can respond to that.
Yeah, with the future being fixed point that you try to give, trying to denote free will, I still don't think you answered my question, because what if, like I said before, what if God knows the future, what is done, right? But what is done is determined by our choice. His knowledge isn't fucking, what's it called? His all knowing to negate it because of the possibilities of doing X, Y, Z, because he still knows what happened. When you mean by future being fixed, I don't know if you're talking about like him actualizing it because of his omniscience or some other shit, but I'm assuming that you talk about that. Yeah, I still don't see how that defeating the point that free will doesn't exist because of, because of quote unquote predetermined things existing.
And to answer your question, Ghost, yes, that is self-defeating. But to respond to what you're saying, I mean, obviously, if that's going to be the instance you're trying to suppose, that in some sense God would formulate his knowledge based on the events already taking place, you know what I'm saying? This obviously would contradict that idea of, omniscience. I mean, the argument assumes that omniscience is perfect, which I've already defined it, that this unchanging knowledge of the future, means that all future events are known as though they are already occurring. If you're going to say that such an event has not occurred yet God knows knowledge of it, you're presupposing the existence of such event already. So it would be quite useless for you to already say that he's constantly getting new knowledge, because in this instance, that means there would be knowledge that he hasn't acquired yet. This wouldn't quite fit the idea of what we define as omniscience, unless you're going to give some nuanced and an informal definition of omniscience, which wouldn't really make sense because I've already defined omniscience and determinism within this instance. So it would seem that, at least on that part, we would have to backtrack in order for that to go through. Because if we do presuppose that omniscience is having perfect knowledge, perfect and unchanging knowledge, he cannot acquire new knowledge. That means all future events that he knows of, he must know of all future events that can ever occur and will occur, which means that these events already have to be known. Otherwise, we're going to fall into, at least, I don't know if you're familiar with this, the divine foreknowledge problem, which is just going to obviously explore the relation between God's omniscience. So it wouldn't really make sense for you to suppose such. You also seemingly had an issue with my justification of premise 3. I mean, I can give like a quick example if you'd like. I mean, obviously, if you are destined to, take a particular job, and God knows this will happen in advance, you might feel like you could choose a different path. But obviously, under determinism, the job decision is inevitable because it's already fixed in the future. The reason why we know it's fixed in the future is because God knows this will happen. So that means if you chose a different action that God did not know would happen, this would obviously mean that in some sense God's knowledge is fallible. This cannot be the case under this logic. Thank you.
Bro, you can just conclude after this, because I just disagree with the argument itself. So, when you said that God fixed the future, all I'm saying is just that I deny that God is fixing the future in a sense where, since he knew this beforehand, therefore it must be the case we have no choice to do otherwise. I'm saying that him knowing it's the case is what's being actualized, right? Let me argue real quick because I want to see if he agrees with that.
I didn't fully hear what you had said because I don't think any
of
that.
I can repeat it. I can repeat it. It's okay. Okay, I can repeat it. It's okay. Yeah. So I'm saying that, do you grant that him knowing the case, or him knowing what the case is what is actualized? Like, is like it being actualized?
I don't believe I understand the question, nor the relevance of the question.
Does him knowing that I picked up a spoon, or him knowing that I did my homework because it is actualized?
Like it. Okay, I think I understand what you're asking now. Okay, Zeke, I'm gonna explain this because this was actually already explained within what's it called? Premise 2.
It's a yes or no.
Hopefully this answers. If God, I believe it's way more nuanced than a yes or no. If God knows every future event with perfect certainty, those events must be determined. So if you're trying to ask whether this actualization is going to be some unique variable from God knowing it, in the sense to where it happens and then God knows it, or God knows it. I've already addressed why that would be an issue, because it would imply the fallibility of perfect knowledge, which would be a contradiction. And to clarify, because he asked in chat, at least from what I defined from free will, I'm not sure if he would disagree with this, what I take free will to be is just the ability to choose between, obviously, different possibilities or different possible actions, in a way that is not determined by prior causes, which just essentially means at any given point, a person could have acted differently from how they actually did, given the same conditions.
Okay, so, yeah. Meaning, okay, it doesn't.